All right, now we're going to talk about another couple of other libraries. The first one is the random method in the math class. So public static, I need a class, sorry. Public class random example. And then public static void main string art. All right, so first let's go ahead and see what this does. So let's bring up the math. So Java 8 API math. Okay, if we look for random, we will find that the math.random function returns a double between 0 and 1. All right, so you probably didn't have time to read that, but I showed you where it was. So system out print line math.random. All right. Yes, we'll save it in the same place as always, and then we'll run that, compile it. Oh, it gave us a nice random number. Yes, let's do it again. Gave us another random number. Notice they're different. You will do it again. Yes. All right. You can do all sorts of things with math.random, but it always gives you between 0.0 and 1.0. You can do a lot, like for example, if I multiply this times 10, we will see, aha, that it's going to be bigger. Well, and then what is at the top that it can get? Well, if it's 0, it's going to be 0 times 10. If it's 1, it's going to be 1 times 10. So this will have a range of 0.0 to 10.0. So math.random, pretty useful. Now, what if we wanted to make it into an integer? All right, we could do that. And so we're going to do, let's just cut off, completely floor the decimal. So we'll cast it as an integer. And this will be between 0 and 10. Let's go ahead and run that. There we go. And notice that these are different because this was a 3.8 and this was an 8 point something. We can run it again. 0 and 2 and 2 and 7. And so every time this will produce a random number between 0.0 and 1 and 1.0. And then of course you can multiply it, cast it as it ends, all sorts of things. There's also a random class. I'll just call it random equals new random. There we go, new random. Let's see how this works. If we go into the random method, there we go, and this is part of java.util.random. This is the same package, java.util, as the scanner class. So I have to import it. So import java.util.random. And now let's go look at the documentation. There's a couple ways to create the object. Either I have it blank or I can have a seed. The seed is very, very useful. So I'm going to say 5. Seed creates the same random sequence each time. This is very useful for debugging, for trying to play games the same way. And what does this random class have for you? Well, it can produce a whole bunch of stuff. Ends. The most important one that I find is it'll produce a new random boolean. You don't have to do anything, just rand.next boolean, next double, next float. This is the one I like, next int, and especially next int with a bound. So returns a pseudo random uniformly distributed int value between 0 and this specified value, of course, if it's exclusive. So if we want somewhere between 0 and 10, we'd have to do 0. Between 0 and the bound, exclusive. And you can look at it more and how it actually works. Let's go ahead and print this out. System out print line. I'll say ran.next int. I can compile that, and I'll run it. And it gave me, whoa, a really big number. But it's an integer. So, you know, that's why I like to put a bound. So let's put a bound of 11. So as it showed in the documentation, it's exclusive, so it's going to be between 0 and 10. And voila. Let's go ahead and comment these other ones out. I'll run it again. And it's going to be a 0. And again, a 0. And again, a 0. So when you put a seed in here, it always starts the same random sequence. So I'm going to put several other ones, and the sequence will be the same. So 0, 1, 9, 10. The next one will be 0, 1, 9, 10. If we take out the seed, then it will actually be more random every time. So that's a 6, 9, 3, 5. And the next one's a 3, 2, 3, 4. And the next one's 9, 4, 10, 10. So these are two different ways that you can create random numbers. You can either do Math.random, and it generates a random number between 0.0 and 1.0. Or you can do create a random object with an optional seed, and you can have a lot more control, like a random.nextEnd, next double, next boolean, and so forth. So that's how you can create random numbers.